want to start with Graham Greene and this 1955 novel, The Quiet American. If you haven't had, if it's been a while, if you haven't ever encountered Graham Greene before, he's considered to be one of the leading English novelists of the 20th century. He's really interested in sort of internal moral struggle. And this novel is set in those sort of final years of the French colonial occupation of Vietnam. And it's set around a time or interested in early American involvement. The novel centers on a British journalist named Thomas Fowler. He's our narrator. And in the first, I've excerpted a few pages from the reading for you to look at now. And the first few pages, pages 8 through 10, Fowler is being interviewed by some police officers about Pyle's death. Alden Pyle is the Quiet American. So we meet Pyle first after he's already gone. We learn later, as you'll see, that Pyle has been involved with what he calls the third force. Pyle is a CIA operative, fresh out of Harvard, working in Vietnam, attempting to create a anti-colonial, anti-communist, but very pro-American third force. They, in an effort to sort of display their power, set off a bomb in a market and in Saigon, and miss all of their intended targets. So the second part of the reading in this short selection, we'll see Fowler and Pyle discussing both, or you will read Fowler's account of the bombing, and then we'll see the pair of them discussing the impact of this bomb. What's Alden Pyle like?
He was doing academic warfare. He'd never had blood on his shoes before.
Right.
So it kind of fills you with contempt, which is, I think, the purpose of the author when you're reading about this character. But it quickly turns when he ends up with lungs filled with mud. So it's very clever the way it goes back and forth.
Right. So Fowler will have will tip off the anti-French forces to Pyle's location, and is in some ways responsible for a series of events that lead to his death. What else do we know about Pyle? So maybe naive, right? I think that's a great way to describe it.
Well, on page 10,
Yeah.
Greene describes Pyle, who you tell. He was absorbed already in the dilemmas of democracy and the responsibilities of the West. He was determined to do good, not to any individual person, but to a country, a continent, a world. He was in his element now with the whole universe to improve. And to me, that's Greene's attitude toward America's attitude toward the world.
Right, good. All right, so Greene's attitude to America's attitude in 1955, right? We're dealing with the domino theory. We're worried about containment and trying to prevent the spread of communism. We, United States, in this context. And this says too, I love that moment. Greene comes from that professional class in England that would have been largely responsible for maintaining empire. And that class is struggling in 1955 as the British Empire is going through its own changes. So there's a question too, how much of Greene and through Fowler has this sort of bitterness, perhaps. We'll see. You can see later in the novel when he says, "We are the colonialists," right? Like as though the British are somehow know from their experience. Right. So what's Pyle trying to do then?
I think that's the answer. What they don't know is what he's there for, really. I've actually find myself thinking that the French at this point, sure, the war absconded already, and the English, who always were superior to Americans. And so, Pyle comes in as a, not naive so much, but jeune and convinced of his own honor and on the honor, not the honor of the country, but the values that they want to bring to the rest of the world.
Right.
So
I'll keep going. I don't
no, I don't know anymore.
No, this is fantastic. Did you want to add?
That what I was going. Sorry, what I was going to say is that you had the prior French. The French had colonized Vietnam, so you had that the struggle among the Vietnamese and the French.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently started to read a book by Eric Willard, which was An Honorable Exit, where he speaks about how the French in Vietnam and how they, of course, treated the Vietnamese who working up rubber plantations as slaves. I mean, just the first chapter is horrible, the way they were beaten. So you had that aspect prior to, in this case, the British and the Americans. You had the whole French colonization of France in their own battle.
I think that's such a hugely important point. It's what's unsaid in the novel is the American notion, characterized here by Pyle or caricatured by Pyle, perhaps, right? Is brand new, as though everything is just starting today with Pyle's arrival, when in fact, a huge history, complicated, difficult, right, struggle has been going on well before he shows up from Harvard with his York Harding in hand. He's a huge fan of this scholar. He's read all of his books, and so he knows everything about Vietnam. He knows it all already before he sets foot in the country. And of course, it proves to be, his undoing, and then I think a caution for the war that will follow. What can we make of the bombing? Is he naive? Is naive? Could we still count him as naive in the sense, or innocent, as the novel will describe him, when he's eventually willing to allow this sort of septic conditions for this bomb to go off? What else does he do with the bombing that's peculiar or striking? Or what do we learn maybe about the bombing? Who are the victims? Might be women and children, right? Can you be more specific?
Well, he made a mistake because he was expecting it to be a military parade.
Oh, good, right. There's supposed to be a parade through it. Right.
So, but it wasn't, so women and children were killed. But he does say, and he makes it clear, even if it was a military parade, so a few women and children would be killed anyway.
This is how it's worth perhaps thinking about those the way those casualties are described in the novel, right? As victims or casualties almost in Pyle's mind. Casualties is probably in his war that he's already fighting. Why so there's another character introduced here, and I apologize I didn't preface this, named Phuong, and she's kind of a third part of a love triangle with Pyle and Fowler. She avoids this fate that many other civilians experience in the bombing. How does she avoid it? It's important. Yeah. He warns her, right? He warns her. This is the notion. This is where things with Pyle get, I think, particularly complicated, because it's hard to see from where I cut the page, but there are two American women at a cafe who get up to leave. They're keeping an eye on the time, and they know the bomb is coming, and they leave quickly to avoid being injured. What could we do with that? Oh, no, are you sure? I'd be a terrible auctioneer. Nice. Set this here. No?
Well, usually when you read, you tend to be shocked as well.
Why?
This fellow says you warned her. So you don't know whether he was just surprised by the warning, or that you were surprised by the fact that you warned her. This guy was something other than he really appeared to be.
Right.
So I wasn't sure how to take without There's always something subterranean going on there with
I think it cuts against this notion that Pyle very much wants to believe that this is just war, right? But is it real? Is it so when you are kind of individually choosing who lives or dies or who's harmed or not? And I think the passage that you were referring to, if I may, on 153, about 2/3 of the way down, right? I didn't care. And then the word warn reached my consciousness. I took Pyle by the arm. Warn, I said. What do you mean, warn? All in the middle of this chaos, it suddenly clicks for Fowler that Pyle has blood on his hands and now on his person too, his clothes. Good. I want to turn very, very briefly to the end, or near the end of the novel, where we get Pyle's final justification for this violence. And I want to use that then to segue into another writer's interest in the or engagement with American involvement with violence in Vietnam. And I want to look near the bottom of 171. Right. They were only war casualties, he said. It was a pity, but you can't always hit your target. Anyway, they died in the right cause. And then, in a way, so skip a couple lines down, you could say they died for democracy, he said. And then Fowler's damning line, I wouldn't know how to translate that into these. I wanted him to go away quickly and die. Then I could start life again, the point before he came in. This is, of course, is Fowler's pipe dream. You can't possibly restart. It's once the smoke is out of the you can't take it